Hi, evening everyone, and thank you so much for joining us for the Stop Leaving Profit to Chance webinar this evening. My name's Sally Palmer, and I'm one of the co-founders of Maverix, and we're an organization that is driving Maverick thinking throughout Africa and beyond. And why Maverick thinking? We believe that people should be building businesses that give them the profit and the freedom that they want. Now, before we jump into the webinar, I just want to acknowledge something that's quite significant. Each and every one of you on this call in a business leadership position or a founder, I want to acknowledge that each of you has built something real. You've been through the hard yards, you've sacrificed a lot, there's been late nights, stress and pressure, but you've built something that exists and that is real and that is potentially going to give you what you want out of life. And that's the big question is, will your business give you what it is that you want? And something that we've seen working with business leaders across Africa over the last 2 decades is that too many people work hard for a very long time and sacrifice a lot, and in the end don't really get what it is that they set out to get. Because people start businesses for freedom of money, to get financial freedom, to create freedom of time for themselves so that they can do what they want and not be controlled by the corporate system, and freedom of responsibility, having the ability to make decisions on their own, as well as not having to report to anyone. But so many people that we work with start out with this dream and end up not achieving it. And one of the biggest problems that we've come across is that people are not taught the fundamentals of how to build profitable businesses that are sustainable in the long run. They taught lots of theories, and people have fancy qualifications around the topic of business. But do you know how to actually engineer profit out of the machine that is your business that you've built? And the people that we have seen that have been successful in businesses are the ones who have learned how to do this and learned how to do this sustainably for the long term. So that's what we're going to be talking about tonight is stop leaving profit to chance. And how can we engineer profit out of our businesses intentionally? So let's jump right in. At the outset, I want us all to understand that your business is a machine that you have built to produce profit at the fundamental level. It's a machine that operates and there's lots of activity, and at the end, we want to produce profit. And if we look at it like we are playing a competitive game and profit is the result, this is really important because people think profit is something that may happen if they work harder or if they push sales and if they reduce costs. And these are all good strategies. But we don't want to just hope and pray that at the end of the time period, which is generally a month, how we measure profit, that we might get lucky and hopefully make a profit. If you think about a sports game, we are playing against a competitor in soccer, for example. We're playing a match against a competitor. There's a lot of activity happening. There's kicking and there's tackling and there's striking and there's red cards and there's all these fantastic things. And we get sweaty and we get tired. And we win and we get behind and we chase a target, and all these things are happening in a sports game. But when the time's up, at the end of a 90-minute period, you get a result. You either won or you lost. And the result shows the result of all the effort. So when we're looking at a business, we want to understand that profit is the result. And therefore, if we want a good result, we must learn how to engineer profit and employ the strategies that are required consistently and in real time to make sure that when we look at the scoreboard, the result is what we want it to be. We don't want to play a hard game and sweat and struggle and not get the result at all. And we see this happening over and over again with many, many business leaders, full of activity, lots of pressure, lots of obstacles, and no result. or a result that is not what they set out to achieve. So we want to start to look at our businesses differently and intentionally engineer profit. And we do this by understanding the formula of how profit is produced. It's a formula that guides our decisions, it guides our actions, and it tells us a story of what the business is actually doing and what results we are achieving. So let's have a look at the profit formula and dive into it in a lot more detail so that you understand it in depth. So remember, what you measure is what you get. And I really want you to always remember this phrase. If you want profit, we want to measure profit. And in order to measure profit, we have to measure all the components and the dimensions that work together to deliver profit. You know, I'm at the moment trying to lose weight. The only way I can lose weight is to measure my weight every single day and see if I'm going up and I'm further away from my target or going down, getting closer to my target. And in doing this daily measurement in our lives, in our businesses, we're able to know how to close the gaps and what actions to take to get us closer to where we want to be. You know, too many people that I've come across who are building businesses at high speed and hustling are in a very reactive, short-term mindset where they are allowing external forces to govern their actions and their decisions. And they're not thinking beyond the end of this month or the end of this quarter. So when we start to measure what it is that we want and we know what we're trying to achieve, we can then really start to put our energy in the right place, which is closing the gap. So let's have a look at the profit formula in more detail. Some of you may know this as the income statement or the profit and loss statement. And in the traditional academic way of presenting it, it's quite hard to understand how to engineer profit out of it. So what we've done in the Maverix System is we've created a formula that is very simple and easy to understand so that we can understand the story that the numbers are telling us. And we call this the profit and loss ladder. So it goes like this. At the very top of the profit and loss ladder is volume. How many units did we sell in this period, today, this week, this month? Times average selling price equals turnover. So we want to understand that volume and average selling price are the drivers of turnover. And I would say 99% of the profit and loss statements or profit and loss reports that you will see and that I see all start with turnover or revenue or income. And looking at turnover in isolation of its drivers can be very misleading. We can feel good because the number looks good, but if we don't understand the mechanics of how turnover has come to be, we don't know where the problems are and we don't know if there are problems, because sometimes turnover can look good, but there could be problems in our product mix and how we're selling our product and our average selling price. We could be losing market share without even realizing it. And that's why looking at turnover in isolation of volume and average selling price is very dangerous. As we keep going down the formula, after turnover, we take off our cost of sales, and this equals our gross profit. And gross profit is what every leader should be hunting at the core, at the first dimension, because gross profit is then what we use to pay out some of the rest of our costs and to pay our profit. After gross profit comes variable costs. These are costs that vary in relation to turnover. So these are great costs that we want in our business, because when we have a downturn in business, these costs naturally reduce in proportion. So once we deduct variable costs, we get to contribution. Now, again, majority of the P&Ls that I look at do not split cost of sales, variable costs, and report on contribution. And contribution is such a critical number to understand because it informs our break even. So when our contribution equals our fixed costs, we know we have broken even, because the job of contribution is to pay our fixed costs and our profit, our trading profit. Now, when we have broken even, we then know that all our costs are covered and every dollar beyond contribution is profit. And this is where business becomes really fun. If you are chasing break even consistently through the month, trying to find the money to make sure your month-end bills are covered, you're not in the zone of playing the game of business. You are chasing your tail consistently, and it becomes quite exhausting. So when we're able to look at our business through this lens of the profit and loss ladder, and we know the milestones we need to achieve, every month we restart the match and we go and play the game. We know that our first big milestone is to get to break even. So when our contribution is enough money to match our fixed costs and pay all our bills. So after contribution, we deduct our fixed costs. These are costs that are fixed regardless of our level of turnover. We have to pay them whether it's a good month or a bad month. They don't really change. And the ultimate result equals trading profit. I say to you all, memorize this profit and loss ladder, tattoo it onto your brain, and start to use it as a lens through which you look at your business from. So it goes volume times average selling price equals turnover, less cost of sales equals gross profit, less variable costs equals contribution, less fixed costs equals trading profit. Now, it may not sound significant to you, but if you can start to train your mind to think of your business in this way, when you are then faced with challenges or decisions to make or opportunities to take advantage of, you then understand how all the ladders in the profit and loss, all the rungs of the ladder in the profit and loss interact together to produce profit. So take this into work tomorrow and sit with your accountant and say to them, please, can we have a look at our numbers in this format so that we can start to understand the story that our numbers are telling us. So when we understand the P&L ladder, we then put our actual numbers in this format. So we move away from the complex income statement that have plenty of different accounts in your chart of accounts, and it's so long that you can't really understand it. We put our actual numbers into this format. We understand the different types of costs: cost of sales, variable costs, and fixed costs. And we spend time categorizing these costs. Because like I said earlier, there's two fundamental ways to make more profit: push sales, reduce costs. But this is the first dimension. So if you can understand the different categories of your costs, you then know what decisions you need to make and where to apply your energy and your innovation in order to play with these costs so that you can generate more profit. Once you understand your actuals in this format, we then want to understand our target, because understanding our actuals in isolation of where we're trying to get to is also very misleading, because it's all about how you feel. I feel like we had a good month. We seem to be doing quite well. Those are very, very dangerous things to say to yourself and to comfort yourself with, because they are very dangerous. They are very not comforting. When you understand your actual versus where you're trying to get to, your target, now you're starting to understand where to put your energy, where the problems are, and how to engineer your costs and the relationship between your costs and your income in order to engineer profit. Once you understand these two, you then know the gap to go and close. And I think one of the biggest shifts we can make in business leadership is to take our attention onto the gap, because that's where we play the game. This is where we tackle and we run fast and we hold and we strategize, because as we close the gap, this is where we start to make the profit. So let's have a look at an example, a real life example, just to take you through this. So have a look at this business. They sold 4,500 units in this period. Let's say this is 1 month. In the month, they sold 4,500 units at an average selling price of $75, which delivered them turnover or revenue or sales or income of $337,000 for the month, $37,500. They then had some cost of sales, which are the direct costs that produce the product or the service that we sell, of 44% of turnover, giving us a gross profit of $189,000. 56% of their turnover was generated in gross profit. They then deduct their variable costs of $60,000, which is 18% of their turnover, to give them their contribution. Now, remember what I said. Any dollar above your fixed costs is profit in contribution. So if you have a look at this number, they've made $128,250 of contribution. Their fixed costs are $111,000. So therefore, they made $16,875, which is 5% of their turnover they made in trading profit. So quite simple, easy to understand, and we can see how this business is doing. Is it doing well? Is it doing badly? In general, if you're not comparing it to anything, you don't know. It seems good. They're generating a decent amount of turnover, and the founder or the shareholders are putting $16,000 in their pocket. But at a 5% trading profit, it may not be as good as they'd hoped. So what had they hoped to do? So let's have a look at the target. We can see here that their target was 5,000 units. So they're 500 units under target, and it may not seem too bad. The average selling price is also below their target. And as you go down, all the way down to trading profit, you can see that they actually made $16,000, but their target was $90,000. So there's a big gap. Their target trading profit percentage is 20% versus their actual being 5%. Now we're starting to see the story that this business is telling us, and we can see the gaps here. So looking at the gaps, we start to see now, where do we put our energy? And this is where we call our teams in. We look at these numbers, we understand the gaps, and now we know where to put our energy to go and close those gaps. If we only see these numbers at the end of the match, at the end of the month, or after the end of the month, there's nothing we can do to go and fix the problem or close the gaps. And that's why I encourage every one of you, try and get your numbers as live as possible. If we understand these are the drivers of profit, every line item in the profit and loss ladder, these are what drive our profit, and the interaction between them is what enables us to either make a profit or end the month losing, making a loss. So if we can get our team intertwined into these numbers and understanding them very well and taking ownership of the different line items, this is when the magic starts to happen. This is when we can multiply energy at fantastic levels amongst our team members. I know lots of people that don't show their team their profit and loss because they don't want the team to see, or they don't want the team to know what's happening, or maybe they're making too much money and now they're going to have to share it with their team. I say that is a recipe for disaster. A business is never going to grow if the full team at the functional level are not intricately linked to the drivers of profit. And so the teams that win and the businesses that win are the ones where there is full accountability of targets in the business, agreed accountability, agreed targets, because then you can start to report on these targets in real time and understand the gaps to close. And this is where we can start to have a lot of fun, because if this was the 27th of the month and we have a 500 unit gap to close, we've still got some time to go and close that gap. And this is where the person who owns volume, generally the head of sales, can now really strategize and call up the customers and, maybe play around with the average selling price. The goal being is to go and win and hit the target. And now there's clarity. And when there's clarity, we then also get direction. We know the direction that we're trying to go in. We understand the targets. And if everyone has visibility of these numbers and ownership of the different line items, we have alignment. And these are the magical ingredients that deliver multiplication of energy, which delivers results. So having a look at this, if this was the end of the month, we would call our team in and say, what are we going to do? How are we going to get closer to our target next month? What's gone wrong, and what strategies can we potentially employ? So let's have a look at some examples here. So there's the profit and loss for the month. We can see that they are making their $16,000 profit, 5% of turnover. Now, analyzing this month and looking forward to next month, we want to ask and answer questions of ourselves and of our team that are very specifically focused on making change, closing gaps, and delivering results. So, having seen the gaps to close, we now start to ask questions. What do we do differently this month? So let's have a look here. We could start by saying, what could we do about fixed costs? Could we change our fixed costs? Could we reduce them in any way? Let's have a look at our fixed costs. Bring the ledger here. Bring the list of accounts and what the costs are. Let's see, are there any redundant costs? Are there any costs that we could potentially convert to variable costs? Are there any costs that we could reduce by cutting things out or renegotiating with some of our contracts? And if we could have this conversation and share the ideas and brainstorm, do you think we could potentially reduce our fixed costs by 1% of turnover? 3,375. Now, I think that's a very achievable reduction in any business. If we said, let's go and reduce our fixed costs by 1% of turnover, let's try find a way to save $3,375. Could we then take our fixed costs as a percentage of turnover from 33% to 32%? Just that one change will take our profit from $16,000 at 5% of turnover to $20,000 to 6% of turnover. Now, this is a dramatic 20% change in trading profit. Our profit has gone up by 20%. It's incredible. And this is just by zooming in on one of the line items on our profit and loss. And this is where we start to understand how to engineer profit. It's all about the relationship between the costs and the income, and the relationship between the costs themselves. Let's look at another example. Say we could reduce our fixed costs by 1%. And then we also say, well, could we reduce our variable costs percentage by 3% from 18% down to 15% of turnover? Maybe this is the decision we make. Let's go and look at what our variable costs are, and let's try and reduce them by 3% of turnover. This would result in a $10,000 reduction in our fixed costs, or a 3% of turnover change. Now, combining our adjustments in variable costs and fixed costs, assuming all our numbers stay the same, all the other numbers stay the same, our trading profit now goes from 5% to 9%, which is an 80% change in trading profit. So now we're starting to see the changes, small tweaks that we can make in our profit and loss can deliver a dramatic growth in the end result. Let's go to another example, another line item we could interrogate, cost of sales. What can we do in cost of sales? How can we reduce our cost of sales percentage from 44% further down, closer to 40%? What do we need to do? Do we need to buy better? Do we need to get more efficiency in our factory or in our team members? Do we need to is our capacity utilization good enough? Like, are we using all the hours or all the machine hours that are available to us to get more for less cost? Is there a way for us to buy better and negotiate with our suppliers? These are all the questions now we start to ask. They're not random anymore. They are very focused on a specific result. So if we could reduce our cost of sales by 2% from 44% to 42%, Now we start seeing the combination of all our actions coming together. Our trading profit moves from 5% to 11%, which is now 120% change in trading profit. And we keep going. Could we change our average selling price? Could we do some interesting things with our product mix and our customers and our salespeople to get a 10% increase in our average selling price overall, so that our average selling price goes from $75 to $83? I don't think that's impossible. I think that's something we could potentially do in any business, especially a business with an average selling price this high. And now a change in average selling price takes our profit from 5% to 14%. And then finally, we look at our volumes. Can we increase our sales by 10%, an extra 450 units? Maybe we can do some interesting things in marketing or sales, or maybe we can do some product combos or something. We start to get creative and we improve our volume by 10%. Now we look at our trading profit. It's gone from 5% to 19%. And if you remember from our target was 20%. So now this is our strategy. This is our gap closure strategy that we agree with our team. And now we are very, very carefully sharpening our focus to find the small percentage points throughout every rung of the profit and loss ladder to engineer the profit that we want. So when we now go look at our target, based on the strategy that we're going to employ for this month of increasing each of the contributors of profit, we can see how close we can get. Yes, if we make these changes, we're only getting to 19% instead of 20%. But we're going to deliver an $85,000 profit versus our target of 90, which means the following month, if we do achieve these numbers, we have a $5,000 gap to close, or a 1% of turnover gap to close. So this is where the dance starts to happen between the different dimensions of the profit and loss. And if we can start to zoom in and understand the story that our numbers are telling us and where we need to apply resource and activity and action, then we can start to really build a business that produces profit. So in order to do this, we've developed something called the Maverix System. And the Maverix System is designed to deliver profit, growth, and ultimately fulfillment. Because the two most important things we should be doing when we are running a business is making profit and having fun. And yes, we want to make an impact and we want to service our customers, but the ultimate objective is we want to enjoy what we're doing and we want to make a profit. And so we've designed the Maverix System over the last 20 years, interacting with business leaders from different sectors and different industries at different size businesses. And we've also learned from our own experience, building businesses across Africa. And we've put together a system that shows people how to build a sustainable, profitable business that delivers them what they want. So let me take you through the system, and I hope that you can take some notes as you go through, because this is a sequential way of thinking that builds a foundation from which you make decisions. We call it a decision-making framework, so that, like I said earlier, if you don't know what you're doing and you don't know what you want, everything looks like an opportunity. And we can spend a lot of our life going left and right, exhausting ourselves, trying all sorts of different avenues and never getting momentum in a forward direction. And so now's the time. Like I said earlier, you've built something real. So now's the time to start moving forward consistently towards where it is that you want to get to. And the Maverix System all starts at the foundation, which we call ambition. We call this the foundation of success. This is defining what it is that you want from life, in all the different areas of life, from your wealth to your health to your profession, spirituality, friends, family, the multiple different facets of life that will bring you to a place of happiness, contentment, and fulfillment. in the end. So we look towards the latter part of our life. Maybe it's 10, 15, 20, 30 years ahead. We want to drive long-term thinking, because long-term thinking with short-term action is the magical combination that builds the life and the level of happiness and success that you want. And once we've defined our personal ambition, this then guides the ambition of the business ambition. Because remember, it's important, the business's job is to work for you. And therefore, we need to know what we want, and therefore we must drive the business to deliver that to us from a financial and a professional and a fulfillment perspective. And once we've defined the business ambition, this then guides everything that we do going forward: the size of the business, the scale of the business, the sector, the geography, where are we going to go and compete? It guides how we're going to grow the business, over what time frame, what are the milestones. It then guides also, what does the end look like? Are we going to sell the business? How are we going to get out of the business? Are we going to bring in team members to buy our shares? What does the end result look like? Because when we begin with the end in mind, we then know what decisions to make today to take us closer and closer to that end result. We don't want to be playing a lottery with our life. We don't want to be gambling and hoping that magical things will happen sometime in the future and everything will work out. We want to openly, intentionally, and honestly take complete control of our destiny. And we do that by getting clear on our personal ambition and our business ambition. From there, we set our models. We go into what we call the business fundamentals. We need to define a business model, which is the financial framework that sets the parameters of success. So what does this business look like ideally when it's delivering what I want consistently? What is the profit and loss model? What is the balance sheet model? What is the cash flow model? Because once we understand and define our model, we then can look at where we are today, and we know what gap to go and close. We know what strategies to start employing, because the next step is our strategy, which is our roadmap to success. Once we understand our model, we can then set our strategy. And the strategy is, what are we going to do to deliver the model? Where are we going to grow? Where are we going to introduce new products? What about partnerships? What about mergers and acquisitions and CapEx and all these interesting things? It starts to become very sequential and very logical based on the end result. Once we have a strategy, we then put together a structure, which is the business functions and accountability framework. And this structure is there to deliver the strategy and execute on the strategy. Once we have our ambition, our models, our strategy, our structure, we now have a very strong foundation from which to make decisions and from which to grow the business, because we understand where we're going, we understand our milestones, we understand what we're going to do and what we are not going to do. And then most importantly, we understand the gaps to close. We then go into the business multipliers, the first one being people. The people are the energy that brings the structure to life, to execute the strategy. And the whole people cornerstone is all about our philosophies and culture that attract and retain talent and multiply energy to deliver results, because that is what we want. We can't go at this alone. We have to build a culture of accountability and empowerment where everyone is clear, aligned, and knows where we're going, so that we can multiply energy and create the business that we want to deliver on our ambition. We then capacitate the business with different tools. These are the instruments that unlock advantages. These are things like brand and marketing and funding and investing and CapEx and lots of interesting tools that unlock advantages. And in my experience, too many business leaders get stuck in the tools section. They spend all their time looking for funding or spend weeks trying to define their brand when they haven't set the foundation from which to build this business on: the ambition, model, strategy, structure, and people. Excuse me. The tools exist to add to the business. not to consume our attention as a leader. Finally, once we have all the foundations in place, we can then go and grow. And we grow with courage, we grow with intention, and we grow with absolute conviction when we are ready to grow. A lot of people make the mistake of growing before they have all these things in place. And this is where it gets very dangerous. People can get hurt in this process. Good businesses can go broke overnight when we grow too soon, when we grow too fast because our foundation is not strong enough. So this is the Maverix system. And if I can just encourage you to think sequentially and lock and load each of these cornerstones into your life and into your business. When you are clear, you start to make quick, clear, and accurate decisions. You throw the dart into the bullseye, or at least as close to the bullseye as possible. You stop jumping at every opportunity and you stay on a path because you've set that path. That is your roadmap. And you will go and walk that roadmap and climb over the obstacles that come your way and force through all the doors that are closed because you know where you're trying to get to. And this is when business becomes really fun and really exciting. So each one of us have the choice to hope or to consciously and intentionally take control of where we are and where we are going to. We can choose to be reactive, where we are very heavily influenced by external forces and fears and pressures and expectations and economies and politics and all these things. Or we can choose to act with intent. And when we start acting with intent, we act from a power and strength and courage and clarity from within, which means it's very difficult for us to waver off our path because we know who we are, what we want, and where we are going. We have the choice to keep going as we are, keep trying and hoping and praying, or to start from tomorrow or from today even to make change, close gaps, and deliver results. And this is when business becomes very exciting. So at this point, I hope you've enjoyed what we spoke about. I think the important thing to realize is that clarity shapes your reality, and profit is the result of all your actions. When we start to look at our business as a machine that is designed to deliver profit, we start tinkering with that machine, making it more efficient, looking at the results of the efforts and starting to close those gaps. So from here, a few calls to action for us to help you going forward. I'm sure you might have some questions, or you may want to know, how do I get more information? You can book a strategy call if you are an established business leader and you're wanting to find out how the Maverix system could help you grow your business or help you elevate to the next level. Please book a call with us. It's a no obligation call where we'll help you understand where you are in your business and where you're trying to get to and what are some of the blockages or challenges or changes that you may need to make. So you can go and book a strategy call with one of our team members, or go and jump onto our website, look for more information. We've got a newsletter you can sign up to where we share tips and tools and tactics and strategies on how to build a business that works for you, how to engineer profit, and how to think like a maverick, because we only get one chance at life. So let's go and give it our best shot, and let's learn to navigate the complexities with courage and conviction, because we want to get where we want to be in life. So let's go and do it. There's some quizzes you can take to help contextualize where you are and help you understand some tips and tactics. And you can also follow us on social media, where we share a lot of ideas on how to build a business that works for you. So I want to thank you for joining us this evening, and go out there, think like a maverick, go and master your business, and in the end, master your life. Thank you so much.